Hello, 8th graders, and welcome to Monday, January the 11th. And it's hard to believe that we're halfway through January and I haven't even seen you guys yet. So I will plan to see you on Wednesday. But for today, we are going to be taking a look at perfect verb tenses. And we have talked about regular tenses, and so now we're adding the perfect tenses to those. We will be on page 244. And we're going to go over these, and then I'm going to do some of the class practice with you just to make sure that you understand it. But hopefully it won't be a hard lesson. But I do want you to look at the gray box on page 244. And let's talk about those things there. So I have retyped a few things there. So I'm going to go over the gray box first and then highlight a couple of these things. So if you take a look at the gray box, it says, in the perfect tenses, the third principal part of the main verb is used with a form of have as a helping verb. So the key word you're going to be looking for is have. The present perfect tense indicates an action or a condition that began in the past but is completed as of the present time or continues into the present. The past perfect tense indicates an action or a condition that was completed by a certain time in the past. The future perfect tense indicates an action or a condition that will be completed by a certain time in the future. Now, I know all of that sounds really confusing. It's actually easier if we're able to look at examples, but I do want to give you a couple of takeaways. So, from the gray box, we learned that the third principal part is used with a form of have. And if you go back, I don't even remember the page number, but we'll talk about it in class on Wednesday. Principal parts of common verbs on page 232. The third principal part is that past, it's seemingly the past tense part. But we're going to add the word have to it. So have, has, or had, a form of that gets added. Present perfect is used with have or has. Past perfect, though, uses had. And the future perfect you will be using will have or shall have. So think about what are my key, remember you're grammar detectives, and you think about what are the key words that I'm looking for. Have, has, or had are the key words, and that's going to clue you in to whether you have perfect tenses or not. Now, you are going to, it talked about, an action that began in the past and did something in the future. A lot of biblical language, scriptural language, uses perfect tenses to indicate a work that Jesus began in the past, but he's continuing to do today. So just kind of think in those terms. So present perfect, we're going to see have or has pop in here. So here's a couple of examples. I have glorified thee on earth. Looks like it is past, but because it uses the word have, it does make it present. The action is completed, but it's still going on. I have glorified thee. I started this, but I am continuing it on earth. The second example, the Lord has spoken to mankind through his Son. The word has definitely points to the present. So you've got to be careful. You've got to look for the perfect tense, but then you also have to decide, is it past perfect, present perfect, or future perfect? And so that's where you use the have, had, and has to help you out some. Past perfect, the had and the ed on the end of the verb is probably going to clue you in that it's pretty much always past perfect. Simon had bewitched the people before Philip brought the gospel. So that's going to indicate past perfect. But think about how Simon had bewitched the people before Philip brought the gospel, but it could still be going on. So that's what past perfect is going to do. It's kind of moving you between temporal time periods. Just think in science fiction terms that you could be kind of changing time periods. Future perfect is going to use the word shall or will, and those get also added in as clue words. With tomorrow's picking, we shall have picked strawberries 4 times. The words shall or will with have mean that you have a future perfect tense situation. First person is going to use shall, and then will is used with second and third person. Please remember that. Okay, now if I asked you to show a conjugation of the perfect tenses, this is what I would want to see. And here at the bottom you see I shall have heard. So the I shall gets used for first person, and the will gets used for second and third person. But this would be the conjugation of the perfect tenses. So make sure you know, I believe that there's one of these, yes, on page 246 and 247 in your book. It shows the conjugation of these. Okay, let's practice with class practice, because that's actually the best way to try to identify these and to learn about them is not just hearing me ramble on about it, but to actually do the class practice. So I want you to turn the video off, and I want you to try the first couple. And then we're going to go over all of them. So I believe it is class practice A. We'll go over all of them. But I'll just look down through them and jot down what you think the tenses are going to be. And then we'll go over them. Okay, so if you're back, then hopefully you did the class practice, or you're at least going to follow along, trusting that you're following along. And class practice A, number 1. We have here the largest desert in the world has been named Sahara, which means desert. So we're looking for anything that could look perfect, or the perfect tenses. Find the word has, and that's where you start. Has, have, or had, excuse me. So has been named, and since it's not past tense, we know that. So it's either going to be future or perfect, but it doesn't have will or shall in front of it, so it can't be future. So therefore, it's going to be present perfect. And then if we also look for any other verbs in the clause, which means desert, means is just present. So they want you to find all of the verbs and verb phrases, so we'll be looking at those. So let's look at the second one. It extends across northern Africa and is nearly as large as the United States. Well, we want to look for any have, has, or had. And we don't have any there. So we're going to just have normal tenses. So extends is going to be present. Is also present. So that's pretty easy. If you can't find any have, has, or had, then you know you're just regular tenses. Number 3, strangely enough, frosts will sometimes occur there in winter. So will occur we have there. So we have the will, but we don't have a has, have, or had. So therefore, will occur is just future. The only places where you will see crops are at the oasis. So we're going to look for have, had, or has. We don't see any, but we do see the word will. That's going to indicate future. Will see indicates future. The word are just indicates present. So far we haven't seen too many perfects. You will not find many animals in such a dry place. Well, again, we're looking for have, has, or had. We don't see any. We do see the word will. Will find is going to be our verb, and that is future. All right. Long before modern times, nomadic tribes had occupied the oasis of this land. Well, now we have the word had popping in. So we have had and occupied with an ed after it, so we are going to assume that this is past perfect. So there's the had, that's your clue word, and the occupied is past tense, so past perfect. Okay, number 7. In the course of a lifetime, many of these nomads will have traveled over vast areas of the desert. Well, I see the word have. That's my first clue word. I also see the word will, which it doesn't matter how traveled ends because it does end with an ED. It is going to be a future perfect. This makes it future perfect right here, regardless of what comes at the end of this word. So number 7 is future perfect. Number 8, despite dangers that threaten, many camel caravans have crossed this desert. So again, that clue word, have. And then we had the word crossed there. So have, we're going to be looking more at this word to help us determine whether it's past perfect or present perfect. But we're going to lean on this word right here, have. And that's going to make it present perfect. Have crossed this desert. The other verb here is threaten, dangers that threaten, and threaten is present. Okay. Before anyone crosses the Sahara, he will have made careful preparations for the long, dangerous journey. He, and then will have made. So there's that will, there's the have. You know that this is going to then be a future perfect. So will have made is future perfect. The other one, before anyone crosses, is going to be present. Travelers can expect to see mirages along the way. I look for a have or had. I don't see it. So then I assume it's just a regular tense. Travelers can expect, and that's just going to be present. So hopefully that helped you a little bit on how to determine. You've got 6 tenses to look for now. So how to determine what tense a verb is going to be. Remember, your clue word for perfect is have, has, or had. For future perfect, you're adding the will or shall. So remember those clue words. In probably a couple of weeks, I'm going to have a verb cheat sheet for you that includes a lot of these anomalies of verbs that we've talked about and all the different rules. And hopefully that'll help you remember different clue words for different verbs. If you have any questions, please bring those to class on Wednesday, and I will plan to see you on the 13th. Have a lovely day.